the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
The Stevens Institute of Technology is proud to present the Hugo New Corporation Sustainability Seminar Series, brought to you by Brown and Codwell, Geocetic Consultants, H2M Architect and Engineers, BEM Systems, and Catalyst Group.
Well, thank you so much, Dibs. It is certainly a great pleasure to address this wonderful group of students, and it's always a pleasure to be able to share some of the things that we've picked up along the way, hopefully so people don't repeat the things that we've learned the hard way. Today, the research and the collateral information that I'm pulled together and I'm presenting to you, I did in tandem with a couple of our friends at Kimley Horn and Old Dominion University. And I thank you for the great and wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to it here. So we're like we talked about it with respect to the fact that we're focusing on sustainable projects for your series. Our focus was on the collaboration that it takes in order to be able to pull together these sustainable projects in the Virginia coastline. Collaboration, we find, is a necessity in accomplishing these community-driven projects. And we have the expectation that the projects that we do are going to last a lifetime. So we came up with an approach that basically was very simply set to define value and then report what the collaboration aspects of these projects would be. We tried to keep it pretty simple and limit it to the fact that as long as it had an impact on the shoreline and the coastline in Virginia, we were going to look at it and consider it. And we would let the information that we gathered dictate and indicate the level of success that we found. Very simply put, we reached out to our network of people that we had that were both in the corporate world, in the university world, municipal, pretty much anybody that we have come in contact over the years. We reached out to them and said, hey, would you be willing to have some interviews? Would you be willing to fill out questionnaires? Or do you have resources that you would consider allowing us to review for this data collection series? Why coastline projects? Well, we felt like that's one of our main drivers in the area that we have here, because everything that we do is predicated on either sea level rise or the weather, climates, impacting us, either whether it's a northeaster or just, you know, a king tide moon or whatever it is that comes in, it has an impact on all of our projects. And so to develop sustainable projects, clearly we're going to have that as a consideration. A few of the facts that I thought were pretty important for you guys to know is that we have such a substantial amount of shoreline here that's privately owned. And as such, insurance is a big concern down here. Any kind of methods that we need to come up with to offset the flooding and the vulnerabilities that come with, you know, sustained storms and everything else, is really, really important for us to keep grips on when it comes to developing projects. That being said, the focus is so important because it saves lives and it will save money. And I also thought it was very interesting that if you look at all of the presidential declarations of state of emergencies, 90% of them are based on floods. So it's a very important part and aspect of what it is that we need to consider going forward on any kind of projects in the area. For this study, we had calibrated that a sustainable project needed to be at least 30 years in the making for it to be considered that. So what was interesting is that the community that we interviewed, they felt like it needed to be at least 40 years, which was an interesting way. Overall, if you look at the maps here that are in play, this is the area of projects that we looked at. One of the projects that we looked at is called ADAPT VA, and it was developed by the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. And it's a very dynamic platform. The top part indicates the map area for coastal flooding and marked by sea level rise. And the bottom map that we generated is the maps of the areas where the projects were that we looked at. Interestingly enough, out of the 142 projects that we decided met the criteria that we were looking for, 12 of those projects crossed municipal boundaries and 3 crossed state boundaries. The project types, they ranged from flood prevention to oyster habitat restoration. And whether it was a benchtop desktop research, a software platform, or a construction project, they all shared one aspect, and that was shoreline restoration. Interesting to note, in Virginia's 20-year history, the different types of mechanisms that have been used for funding went from philanthropic solutions, you know, all the way down to developing legislative movement. But interestingly enough, over our 20-year history with public-private partnerships, we've had a lot of failures. And I found it really noteworthy to understand that the projects that I'm going to share with you, they each shared the fact that most of them got accomplished by at least 2, if not more than one of these types of funding mechanisms in place. And by the numbers. So on our questionnaire, we developed a rating selection for the level of importance of each of these areas. And we asked everybody to rate it by the benefits that they thought that it brought and how much collaboration was needed in order to get these items accomplished. And as you can see, the number one benefit that collaboration brought was building of trust, which is super, super important when you're looking at the fact that a lot of these projects are for the benefit of the community. So to be able to build that trust is super important. Also, if you look at everything from shared lessons learned, underserved community, communications to the right, I thought it was very interesting because although some of them didn't rate very high, they were fundamental in the foundation of being able to build an amazing project. You couldn't do it without it. Secondarily of importance, and can y'all see my pointer on here when I put it on there?
Yes, we do.
You can? Okay, that's super good to know. What I thought was super important here is the fact that the nonprofits played such a tremendous role in getting these projects accomplished, both in helping target funding mechanisms, and once they were in place, or even helping put them in place, helping to maintain them and keep them going. So sustainability played a role in each and every one of the coastal projects that we looked at. And what I thought was super, super cool is that each one of these projects that we pulled through were designed to last at least 30 years. The goal for evaluating each of the projects was to see that those performance expectations lasted the better part of 30 years or more. And we, just of noteworthy to all the different players for all the projects, we had 9 nonprofits, 12 contractors, 3 design firms, 7 municipalities, 4 state agencies, 10 federal agencies, 5 universities, and 2 planning districts that were at play within this. And you can see, and on a good many of the projects, the players, they were all there. They would go from one to the next to the next. So everybody's very friendly down here. So the project examples that I'm going to share 5 with you, and each one begins with an idea and continues with the education. And so I'm going to open with 2 that fell into the education realm, and I'm going to end with one that was actually a construction project and how they turned it into an education platform. So the first one that I'm going to share with you is, y'all probably heard of it. It's called Clean the Bay Day. And what began with a presidential State of the Union address in 1984 quickly pivoted into an idea from a bunch of boaters that were locally said, hey, we can make a difference. And the next thing you know, the municipalities grabbed hold of it. And the next thing you know, we've got the Chesapeake Bay Foundation is the annual sponsor. And so this has been, it's always run on the first Saturday of June. People plan for it all year long. And so from a sustainable standpoint, this is coming on our 32nd year in doing this. What was interesting to note too is what really motivated people to start this was the fact that prior to 2010, there were no legislations enforced to be able to enforce the fact that people needed to make a commitment and keep it. So the collaboration that needed to go on between the citizens, the counties, the nonprofits, the military installations, and the people at the community at large is what it took to say, hey, we're taking charge and we're making ourselves accountable for this. Clean the Bay Day was a 30-year plus tradition that turned into 23 years of Keep Virginia Beautiful. And the statistics that we gather every year are rolled up to the Keep America Beautiful program, which actually began in 1953. And so when you look at something sustainable that's also deeply rooted in collaboration, it's an amazing feat to behold. And to date, we have had over 158,000 volunteers, over 6 million pounds of debris removed on 7,750 miles of shoreline in Virginia. And that's a beautiful way to get caught in the act. And that is, by the way, what everybody pushes out here. Let's get caught in the act. So the second project that I was going to share with you is actually a platform. It was started 9 years ago, and it supports the whole Hampton Roads community by doing several things. It has a calendar of events. It pushes out webinars, series, practical applications that allow people to take something home and use it, and also to be able to make a difference. It is a resource of webinars and inspirational to-dos, and it provides a great example of what social media and education and communication and collaboration can do. The third project that I'm going to share is probably the most in-depth one that I'm going to use. What you're looking at here is the Elizabeth River network system. And it is and was one of the most contaminated river systems in the United States. This particular site the project itself was pulled in by a nonprofit and set up, and then the name of the nonprofit is the Elizabeth River Project. And their mission is to restore the Elizabeth River to the highest practical level of environmental quality through government, business, and community partnerships. It consists of over 2,000 citizen members and 131 River Star facilities, which are basically those facilities who can live up to the standards that they have set up. And through the life of the Elizabeth River Project, they work collaboratively with the Navy, with NOAA, USACE, EPA, EQ, and our Department of Conservation and Recreation, as well as a lot of the municipalities here locally. So this particular story goes all the way back to the early 1900s. It's a Superfund site set on a former creosote wood treatment site. The project itself was approximately $7 million, and it was funded by NOAA, the Department of Conservation and Recreation Duck Stamp Program, the Innovative Sediment Nutrient Reduction Grants through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, implemented by the EPA and the EPA CARES grant. And this is very unique because it was a Superfund site, and they kind of took a chance on us here locally and allowed us to do something that's never been done before. And so what this project and all of its participants were able to do is they were able to dredge and cap some really horrible contamination. And it was designed, had lots of issues, went design, bid, build in 2 phases. The biggest, most pivotal part of it all had so much to do, again, with that number one issue, which is trust. Prior to the Elizabeth River Project taking it over and working their magic, the Corps, the EPA couldn't even get onto the site. The owner of the site, Hess, wouldn't even let anybody cross over. And once the collaborative approach came in and started taking hold, the walls came down, the barriers came down, and people started saying, hey, how can we make this right? What can we do together? And in the end, Hess made an additional donation of adjacent property, and collaboratively, the group had a common goal, And what was interesting is they were able to do it without attorneys, and they got more done quickly and much less expensive. The project, the Elizabeth, was presumed dead. I mean, for all practical purposes, with over 25 acres of PAHs in the river bottom, up to 8,000 parts per million were seen. And just so you can kind of get a perspective, it only takes 45 parts per million to see an adverse effect. This really kind of further elaborates that and speaks for itself. I mean, the cancers that were found, that were seen in the local fish at this point in time, when this project first started, there were only 4 native fish species found in the river. It consisted of 3 phases, and very well depicted here: dredging, backfilling, and to make a living marsh. They dredged over 1,000 cubic yards of sediment. And if you look to the left, you can, there's 2 pictures here. The one to the left shows the PAH levels of what is the project area to the right. And you can see the range of what it was that they had to deal with. This is phase 1 completed, just for some perspective. And then from there were enhancements added: Oyster Reefs, Kinder Morgan donated Phragmites field. An excavated berm went from high marsh to low marsh, planted native species, and built the oyster reefs out on another berm. Over 1.5 acres of sand was backfilled over top to make a living cap over the contaminated material, leading to the marsh creation. And this is what it looked like after construction. You can see the whole, the berms and the living shoreline with the oyster reefs and everything. One of the first green projects of its kind that achieved its intent, and it also received the unexpected benefit of preventing flooding back into the tank farm. What it delivered is that now there are over 26 species of fish found into the area, and it's flourishing. The next project that I'm going to show here is actually a really quick example, but of something that's super important here locally, and that is that the cultural resources are recognized and preserved. This particular project was a citywide effort, and the company that came in, Dovetail, they were able to look at historic records from 1990 to 2019. They used GIS. They required collaboration and multiple stakeholders, public input, and utilized a cost share program in order to get it accomplished. This 5th project is the Paradise Creek Nature Park, a super neat project that was helped with the port support. It's a national model for urban restoration, and it really shows how industry, nature, and art can coexist in harmony. Over 10,000 pounds of PCB contamination were removed from this area. It was a $6 million project. And at the end of the day, it had an educational facility, academy that went in using all green technology. This is the Fred W. Beasley River Academy. It has 20 solar panels, rain cisterns, 100% rainwater stays on site. The sustainable materials that were made were chosen to avoid VOCs and to demonstrate a high efficiency of passive solar heating and cooling. as well as the native plants. So making this whole area not only a great habitat restoration project for the native wildlife, but for a great place for people to work and educate the locals. This was a public-private partnership between the City of Portsmouth, who maintains the park, a nonprofit who raised the funds to buy and improve the site, and also runs the educational and volunteer programs, and the Port of Virginia, who restored the 11 acres of restored wetlands. This is over 40 acres of waterfront park, 2 miles of trails in an urban forest with open public paddles. It has 2 miles of handicap accessible trails, butterfly trails, fitness trails, vernal pools, wildflower meadows, and a kids playground. Super fun. Not to mention an interactive website that during all this COVID stuff, people have been able to use to really entertain their kids, give them a place to look forward to go out to and visit. And the final example that I have for you is, I actually have a little video to share. It's for the Brock Environmental Center. It was brought together for us by the, after the Save the Bay. I kind of wanted to kind of circle around and kind of go full circle. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation funded this, set it up to engage, inform, and inspire our generations that come to visit here locally. And because we started with education and outreach, I thought it was very appropriate for us to end that way. And as you can see, I just put a few notes here regarding the collaboration and how important it is to build the trust, how important it is to inspire the sustainable solutions with innovation, and how it was tremendously responsible for finding ways to accomplish things economically that otherwise may not have gotten funded. So with that, I'm going to move this and share a little video clip here. Y'all seeing a screen with the Brock Environmental Center on it?
It's just the slide, not the video.
I have to hit
Yeah.
share, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, we good now? I'm gonna hit
Yes.
go. All right. I think I am. There we go.
Heaven and earth never agreed better to frame a place for man's habitation. Those were the words of Captain John Smith as he first set eyes on the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake was, and continues to be, one of the most productive estuaries in the United States.
Since its founding in 1967, CBF has had one goal: save the bay. Through education, restoration, advocacy, and litigation, CBF fights for effective solutions to reduce pollution in our waterways.
In 2001, CBF built its current headquarters, the Philip Merrill Environmental Center. The Merrill Center was one of the greenest buildings of its time, even earning America's first LEED Platinum Building Award. In 2014, CBF completed the sister building to the Merrill Center, the Brock Environmental Center. Nestled along the shores of the beautiful Lynnhaven River in Virginia Beach, the Brock Center has set the bar high for green building worldwide.
The Brox Center is designed and constructed to operate as elegantly and efficiently as the grasses along the Chesapeake Bay, providing all of its own energy and a natural filter for the environment.
When you come to the Brox Center, you'll see many different types of practices to live sustainably with the environment. But if people leave with just one technique that they can apply in their lives, our job is done. And happily, many people leave with multiple things that they can apply in their daily lives.
How does it feel to see the Brox Center today? Can I say that I'm bursting with pride? I feel like beating my chest.
The building management system is constantly monitoring three things: the interior temperature, grains of humidity, and the exterior temperature. When we meet those three conditions, HVAC systems turn off. Green lights turn on in the space, allowing staff to open windows if they choose to maximize the use of natural bay breezes. The Brox Center is built 200 feet from the shore, 14 feet above sea level with marine-grade steel, rebar, and concrete, and is prepared for sea level rise. It's built to withstand the 100-year floodplain and a 500-year storm surge.
During the day, the indoor lights are hardly utilized. The sun provides all the light needed. To save electricity, lights were installed that turn on and off automatically when people are in the rooms. When the workday is done, we use what is called a vampire switch. It turns off most of the electricity in the building in order to stop idle power drain.
The Brox Center's windows are positioned and glazed to promote natural daylight while preserving views of Pleasure House Point and the Lynnhaven River.
Through multiple methods of water conservation and management, the Brox Center uses 90% less water than an office building of a similar size.
All of our drinking water comes from the rain and the sky. It's free. Virginia Beach receives more rainwater on a yearly basis than Seattle, Washington does. We just have sunnier days. 40% of the rainwater is collected off the roof and is treated to potable standard, while the other 60% is diverted to rain gardens. We're the first commercial building in the continental United States to treat its water to a drinking standard. What do we do with a small amount of wastewater from sinks and showers? You know we recycle that. All water from sinks and showers, called gray water, is processed through these gardens behind us, helping us restore the natural aquifer below.
Of course, there's always water that can't be added back into the system immediately. CBF has been using composting toilets for decades now. Our toilets use far less water than a typical toilet. Black water from this system is stored on site and sent to the Hampton Roads Sanitation District to be treated and turned into fertilizer, which you can purchase at local nurseries and also online.
The Brox Center relies on 100% renewable energy through solar and wind, and all of our energy produced and used can be seen on our dashboard to help educate the public.
Through a combination of wind turbines and photovoltaic solar panels, we produce all of the electricity we need, and then some.
It's very important here at the Brox Center that we conserve energy because we produce our own electricity. And so we are very, very committed to have had a lot of insulation put in the building. This is an example of the roof. As you can see, there's several layers of insulation. The roof material itself is zinc because that was one of the acceptable materials we could use. The walls and the floors also, an amazing amount of insulation so that we can use as little energy as possible. They felt that it was very important to use reclaimed, recycled, and renewable products. In this case, on the floor here that we're standing on, it's an old gym floor from Compostela Elementary School, which they redid, reclaimed, restained, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Over here, we have wood from northern and central Virginia that were old fence posts. Again, a beautifully done floor, reclaimed. The casings around the windows are bleachers from Salem Middle School. They did keep the markings on it so that you'd understand that yes, it was reclaimed, and this is not something new. They did have to take 3 5-gallon buckets of gum off the bleachers, which then made it presentable.
The Brox Center's siding is made from reclaimed sinker cypress. When they harvested the cypress 150 years ago, they used to float the logs down the Mississippi River. Many of the logs sank to the bottom. The wood is essentially petrified, and it's perfect to put on the exterior of a building, and with proper upkeep, it will last for many years to come.
The Brock Environmental Center has been an incredible asset to our work. Not only has it become a fixture and an attraction for the community and people visiting from all over the world, but it's been critical to our public education. So not just students, teachers, and the public at large, but also our elected officials. We've been able to attract local elected officials, state legislators, and even the governor's been here multiple times to announce important legislation and just to see the work that's being done here. It's been a real quantum leap in our efforts to save the bay.
Brock Environmental Center has become a gathering place for all types of people. People can come to the center to learn more about conservation, and they come to the property to just enjoy nature, to bird watch, to walk around, to fish, really just kind of appreciate our waterways and all the wildlife and habitat it supports. So we've had over 100,000 visitors at Brock Environmental Center in the last 5 years. Just an amazing response, and really excited about all of the enthusiasm and all those people who want to come out and learn more.
Running educational trips down here, we take students, adults, and elected officials out on the water, seeing actually the impacts that we have on our waterways. A lot of people come down that's been with us as a student. Now they have children coming out with us as students. And it's something that they say they'll always remember. That's what I like.
Why should we focus on education? Well, it's the hope of the future, to make sure that our young people understand about the environment and how we can live with the environment in a harmony. And it's broad awareness, and I think that's the main key, that we can live in community with the environment.
The Brox Center was built to educate, inspire, and reduce pollution in the Chesapeake Bay, while also being a model of what is possible for our generation and future generations to come.